day it's a different thing. So I'm so excited to be with you all this morning and just share a little bit about, oh, it looks like my AirPods just died. So there you go. All right, let's see if you can hear me. Can you still hear me? Okay. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. So anyhow, yes, I am excited to be here with you for the morning, and I will leave about 10 or 15 minutes for questions. So if you do have any questions during the talk, you can sure just throw them in the chat. Or if you want me to answer something afterwards, you can throw it in the chat as well. So I'll just share a little bit about myself and my story. I live here in Sioux Falls with my husband of 24 years, and our two kids are 15 and 12. And my oldest is transgender. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, anything about the word transgender, anything about gender identity, I would have just had nothing. I would have not known anything. And so I had never knowingly met a transgender person. I had, not really looked into it at all because it didn't have anything to do with me, or so I thought. And I was just ignorant. And so having a transgender son has been interesting, to say the least. I'll just share a little bit about how that came about. And I know that those of you who work with youth may be dealing with some youth who are gender diverse or transgender or non-binary or questioning or gender fluid, or maybe gay, lesbian, bisexual, or any of the other letters that you'll see in the LGBTQ, IA+, and Two-Spirit lineup. So we just want to talk a little bit about, acceptance and affirming, and I'll share that, it hit us hard as a family. As a parent, you have these unspoken dreams and goals for your children, and just plans, future plans. I had no idea how many things that I had envisioned for my child's future that, weren't ever going to be a part of my child's future. And that did cause some grief and some heartache for sure. But my child was born 15 years ago, and the doctor pulled the kid out and said, it's a girl. And we thought we had a girl for many, many years. However, if I would have known anything about gender identity, I would have gotten it a lot sooner. So at the age of 3, my toddler was talking to me about babies, and I was pregnant with our second child. And I said, someday you can have a baby in your tummy if you'd like. And they said, no, mommy, I never be a mommy. I'd be a daddy when I grow up. I never have a baby in my tummy. And I was like, oh, well, you can adopt. You don't, and you don't have to have a baby. No, I'd be a daddy. And early on, our child identified as a male, but I didn't get it. There were so many other instances through the years. As a 5-year-old, my child told their best friend, I'm really a boy. We didn't, of course, know any of this until age 10. But around age 9, our child started to deal with anxiety and depression and have these angry outbursts at what was seemingly, nothing. And so we decided to take our child to counseling and to figure out what was going on. I just kind of had expected there to be some sort of bullying going on or something that we just didn't know about. So we wanted to figure that out. And after some assessments, the counselor said, your child has something called gender dysphoria. And gender dysphoria is an internal distress with the way that someone was born versus how they feel on the inside. So their gender identity, how they feel and think, and their essence doesn't match up with their body and how they are perceived in the world, and it causes distress and trauma. And I was like, well, how do we fix that? Like I I'd never heard of such a thing. I was just like, okay, what's that? How do we fix it? How do we get rid of it? Um, and unfortunately, there's no way to get rid of that internal struggle. Some people deal with it daily. Some people deal with it only, when they're reminded of their gender assigned or their sex assigned at birth. But it causes a lot of distress. And so our child was really struggling with internal trauma, and that was, it was tough. And we took a lot of time to research and to figure this out. At the age of 10, so that was at age 9, at the age of 10, our child did something called a social transition. And a social transition is using a new name or pronouns, getting a haircut, getting new clothes, things like that. So that's kind of the route that we started with. And that's what you'll mainly see when you're working with kiddos, is that social transition. So I would love to say that it was easy and it was seamless, and it was not. It was very traumatic for our family. This was 5 years ago. The South Dakota State Legislature had been trying to pass a bathroom bill, and there was a lot of hostility towards transgender people. Now I feel like that is shifting a little bit. People are aware that there are trans people in the world, and some of them have met a trans person. But my goal as an educator is to really share the stories and lift up the trans people's stories as well, with the state of South Dakota, so that people can find more empathy, compassion, and acceptance with the LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit community. So today I will just kind of go through just a quick kind of gender 101, just to give you a little basis for gender identity and some of the other language that you may hear in the LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit community. And then of course I will, like I said, I'll open it up for questions, and if I don't know the answer, I will find it out for you. So I think I'm going to share my screen here, and let's see if we can get to my Google Drive. And I just got to move things around here a little bit. Slideshow. All right, can y'all see this? Fantastic. Okay, so I will share that some of the photos, basically all the photos you see today, will be of transgender South Dakotans, young adults, and youth. These were taken by Michaela Sieber, who is a board member, and she's with South Dakota Urban Indian Health as the executive director. So a good question I start off with is, how old were you when you knew your gender? Think back. how old were you when you just knew you were a girl or a boy or non-binary? I think most of us just kind of can go, oh, well, I just always knew, I just always felt like that. And a lot of transgender people can look back and say, yeah, I just always knew. Some transgender people I've talked to that are probably over the age of 20 have said, you know what, I always knew there was something, I just couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know what it was because it wasn't visible, it wasn't talked about. There wasn't a lot of information out. And now that people are putting out their stories online and sharing who they are online, people are able to put a, put a name to what they're feeling. So the Transformation Project, our missions to support and empower trans youth and young adults, while also educating communities in South Dakota and the surrounding region about gender identity and gender expression. And I started this organization about 3 years ago. And I started it in response to not having the resources we needed as a family when we went through this. There was just not much here in South Dakota whatsoever. And so I had to look elsewhere. I had to look to big national organizations, and there were books that I was reading that I reached out to the authors and I was like, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you talk? And so I found a lot of support that way. But yes, the Transformation Project is here for all of you. So if you do have any questions, concerns, if you need to refer someone to us, we are here for them. About 0.7% of people in the world would say they identify as transgender. And that would add up to about 6,000 or more South Dakotans, and about 1.4 million in the United States. Now, I did see a new statistic yesterday that I need to read more about before I put that on my slide, but definitely the number has gone up due to the visibility and people being able to put a finger on what they're feeling. Being trans is not a mental health disorder. You may recall that homosexuality used to be listed as a mental health disorder, and that was removed from the World Health Organization years ago. And transgender, being gender diverse, gender dysphoria, all those things will be taken out as a mental health disorder. In 2018, the World Health Organization said, we are changing this to sexual health, not mental health, and we're going to be calling it gender incongruence. This is going to be happening in the next couple of years. It just goes through a lot of committees and things like that before it gets approved. So let's see here. Mental health issues may arise though, and you may see that with a lot of the LGBTQ IA plus in Two-Spirit community. Mental health issues may arise for a lot of reasons. Internal struggles, trauma, a lack of acceptance, rejection from parents or peers, rejection from teachers. We have a lot of discrimination, all sorts of, hostility towards the community. I think here in South Dakota, we see a lot of issues arise around legislation that is enacted against the LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit community. So a lot of mental health issues can arise, but they are not from being transgender, and being transgender is not a mental health disorder. The World Professional Association of Transgender Health has assessments that, if a child would say, I'm dealing with gender dysphoria or show signs, you can take your child to a therapist and get some assessments. They're looking for gender incongruence that has lasted for 6 months at least, inconsistent, or they're insistent about it, they're persistent about it, and it's been consistent for 6 months. That's what the WPATH is looking for. We have 2 WPATH certified providers in South Dakota. So if someone does reach out to us for assessments, we refer them to those people. If they're just looking for a therapist who has some training in gender identity, we also can refer to those as well. Just a quick terminology here. We've got gender versus sex. Sex is basically what you're assigned at birth. They look at biological characteristics, they look at genetics, those sorts of things. And then gender, like I said earlier, is how you feel in your head, your heart, your essence, who you are, how you see yourself. Gender versus sexual orientation. Those are not related. So someone can be transgender and straight, or transgender and bi. It's not related at all. They're completely different things. Gender identity versus gender expression. So you may see youth in your programs that express themselves in interesting ways. They may have pink hair, or they may have 10 piercings, or they may wear camouflage and a ballet tutu. So expressing yourself, even if you're not expressing yourself in your assigned gender, that's gender expression. We've also got gender nonconforming. I would say that my sister was kind of a gender nonconforming person. She did not want to be put in a box as far as what she was expected to wear, or what a girl was expected to do. So she's still wears camouflage and baseball caps, and just not conforming to what other people think a girl should look like. Gender dysphoria, we talked about that. And then the word cisgender is someone like myself. So I was assigned female at birth, my sex is female, and my gender, I identify as female as well. And I've never questioned that. It's never been a thing for me. So I am cisgender. Okay. There are several things that fall into the umbrella of the word transgender. You'll see here, this is April. April is non-binary and also two-spirit, and those things fall under the umbrella of being a trans person. So the word transgender, kind of went through that already. We've got a gender fluid person, somebody who doesn't identify as having a fixed gender. I have one friend who their name is Vaughn, and they one day may wear a t-shirt and shorts and a baseball cap and look very masculine, and then the next day they may wear a long dress with beads and pearl earrings and look very feminine, and basically dressing how they're feeling, and knowing within themselves that they don't have a fixed gender. They don't identify with male or female, all the time. It's different. It could be different every day. Now I'm having technical difficulties with my slides. Okay, so non-binary. I'm just going to describe this. I have a lot of people ask me this question. Like, I don't get it. I don't get non-binary. So let's just say that we are, you're driving down Minnesota Avenue in Sioux Falls, and there's 2 lanes going one way. And we're all going the same direction. And the left lane is reserved for males, and the right lane is reserved for females. So let's just say that a non-binary person is driving, and they're going to be driving down the middle of the road over the line. So this person may identify as having a little bit of a male gender, a little bit of female. They're kind of right in the middle, or they may be driving off in the turning lane. And the turning lane is just like, what's gender? There's like, what's the deal with gender? I don't identify as any gender. I'm off in my own lane. So I have, and I know you all work with students, so I have read some research that shows that a lot of the younger kids that are identifying as non-binary, or asking people to use they, them pronouns, like younger, meaning like these are like late elementary school, early middle school at this point, are looking at gender and going, why do I have to be in a box? Like, why does this box say male and I have to be this type of person and dress this way? And that's not me. And why do we have to fit into a box? And so identifying more as non-binary will make sure that they're not in that box. They can be themselves, however they may want to express themselves or be about in the world. And they may ask for you to use they, them pronouns. Two-spirit. So like I said, April, the picture I showed you before this, April is two-spirit. A two-spirit person is always an Indigenous person, and this Indigenous person identifies as having both a male and a female spirit. Two-spirit people have been around forever. I'm sad to say that during the colonization, the two-spirit people were not allowed to be who they were, and oftentimes killed for being who they were. In tribes, two-spirit people were often looked to as ministers, spiritual people that did marital counseling, because they were able to see both sides of male and female. So they were looked to and revered, definitely. So this is a term, the term two-spirit, the English term came about, not that long ago, but people are reclaiming this and seeing their identity in the two-spirit realm and being able to share that with others. So that still is under the transgender umbrella. Intersex, this is really interesting. People that are born with a combination of either, genitals or chromosomes, these people are intersex, and 1.8% of people are born this way. So that's a high percent, almost 2 out of 100. And a lot of people don't ever know that they are born, for instance, we could have a female, assigned female at birth because of their external genitalia, but then internally they may have like some male genitalia and they may produce more testosterone than estrogen in their life. And so we have people that are seeing endocrinologists now and going, I'm a 14-year-old assigned female at birth, but I'm like growing a beard. What is the deal? Or I've always identified as male, but I was born female. So when we send somebody to an endocrinologist, they can do genetic testing, they can do ultrasounds to see, what kind of things are going on the inside of the body. And so for someone who is intersex, it's important to know so that they can name it. And then they can live as the gender that they are meant to, the gender that they feel. There are 3 different types of transitions, and like I said, you'll see youth go through a social transition. There's no medical transition or anything that goes on for kids until after they've started puberty, and a lot of kids don't start anything until they're adults. But I think there is a misconception that like kids are like getting medicines or hormones or surgeries, and that's just not happening. And there are some surgeries that can be done in older teens, but it's very rare to see that sort of thing. And it normally would have to do with a top surgery of somebody getting rid of the chest that is causing them such distress and anxiety. We had one kid that ended up in the emergency room, had tried to cut their chest off themselves because it was causing such extreme trauma and distress. And I just can't even imagine that kind of, it was just a hard phone call to get. So that kiddo is doing great now though. Anyhow, so medical transitions, that's what people think about when they think of transgender people. However, a lot of trans people don't ever get surgeries. It's very expensive. A lot of insurances don't cover it. Like I said, that's not something that kids are doing. We have legal transitions. That's getting a new name, a new pronoun. We can get those things changed on birth certificates, driver's license. Driver's license is super easy. The birth certificates is more challenging because you do have to work with the courts on that. But the federal government does recognize that trans people are themselves. They are who they say they are. So anyone that wants to update their gender on a driver's license or a passport can just go in with a doctor's note and they can get that changed. A name change has to be done through the courts, but once you have that name change paperwork, you can take that in with you as well and get your driver's license or passport updated. Issues trans people may face. There are many. And I will say that a lot of LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit people face these as well. It's just that it's like more for the transgender population. They have a higher percentage, but you'll see that all of these are higher with the LGBTQ plus community. So as you're working with kids, know that they are more susceptible to a lot of things and they're dealing with a lot more than the average kid. Health implications. A lot of trans people avoid doctor's appointments. A lot of LGBTQ people avoid doctor's appointments because of the fear of how they're going to be treated if they reveal who their real self is. Or, let's say someone who is gay, is scared to tell their doctor. They may not get the kind of treatments that they need to live a healthy life. So they miss health screenings often, significantly poor general health, mental health, We've got health insurance issues, high rates of STIs and HIV. And I'm just going to say that, if we had a comprehensive sex education program where we talked about the LGBTQ community and not just, heterosexual relationships, I think we would see a big reduction in these issues. We've also got anxiety, depression, and like I said, these are not because they are trans, they are because of how they are treated or because of the internal trauma that they're dealing with. And then with trans people, we actually have seen a higher instance of the autism spectrum disorder than in the general population. So we also have for the LGBTQ plus community higher rates of substance abuse, homelessness, bias, discrimination, smoking, vaping, self-harm, suicide attempts, sexual assault, murder victims, especially with trans women of color, trafficking, and legislation against them. So when you're thinking of your kids and when you're dealing with kids who are LGBTQ or who you may even just suspect they may be LGBTQ plus, it's important to recognize that they definitely are dealing with a lot. In 2019, we did a survey with the South Dakota Public Health Association, and the results were astonishing. I'll share with you that in the United States, 4% of people of youth have attempted suicide. Of the general public. But once you hit a transgender population, it skyrockets to 41% nationally. In South Dakota, our results were even worse. So we saw an instance of 69% of our respondents were self-harming. 56% of them had suicidal ideation and 50% of them had attempted suicide. The really scary thing is that 100% of our non-binary people had attempted suicide. So it's awful. And there's so much we can do to reduce that. And I'll share with you because you may be the person. It only takes one accepting, affirming adult to reduce that suicide risk by dramatically. And you may be that person to that kiddo. We sometimes see youth come out to their friends first, and then to a trusted adult that might be a teacher and, somebody at after school program, a school counselor, before they come out to their family, because they want to, kids want to please their parents. Kids may think that their parents might reject them or kick them out or abuse them, which does happen. So you may be that person that someone comes out to. And if someone does come out to you, I think something, you can try to think of, what would I say if someone came out to me? But something I like to say is, I'm so glad you chose me to give this information to. Thank you for trusting me. And I'm so glad that you told me. So something like that, because it is very scary for someone to come out, for sure. So as far as like what we do as an organization, if you want to refer anybody to us, I'll give you the website at the end, but we provide welcome kits full of resources for families, for transgender youth, for young adults. We refer to services, we have support groups, We do community building events, and we're a statewide organization. Also, we do educational workshops like this one. So if you're involved in any other club or business or group that might be needing this, just let me know and we can get you hooked up. Our transformation closet is a free closet full of thrift items where we basically meet with a gender diverse individual. Our personal stylists meet with them for 2 hours, help them pick out outfits that fit well, look great, fit their personal style, and send them home with 7 outfits full of accessories and shoes and everything that they'll need. So if you're interested in helping out with that at all, let me know. We also are debuting tomorrow a box, a closet box, basically for people across the state, people that can't get to Sioux Falls. So they fill out an online form, our stylist talks with them, and then we curate a box for them and send it in the mail. So I'm really excited to debut that. And I know out in Rapid City, the Black Hill Center for Equality is getting a closet together as well. So when you do have a transgender kiddo in your program or that you're working with, do use their chosen name. If they ask you to call them something, please do. Use their pronouns, he, she, or they. But I'll tell you what, you're going to mess up. And I think a lot of times we hold back in working with these kiddos because we're just like, oh, what if I mess up? Or what if I say the wrong thing? Well, you're going to. And I think it's important to know that and to be like, okay, I'm going to mess up, but I'm going to try really hard. And when you do mess up, you're going to say, oh, thank you. I'm so sorry, and move on. They don't want you to make a big deal. They don't want you to, freak out that you messed up. They want you to just apologize, thank them, and then try harder and be better. For my child, it took 6 months for me to not mess up anymore, because I think sometimes it's ingrained in our brain, and we're just like, I used to refer to my kids as the girls. I still slip up on that once in a while. Like as I'm saying the words, I change the words. So we have to retrain our brains for sure. Also respect their bodies. A lot of these kiddos are so uncomfortable with their bodies that they do anything to hide their bodies. So it may be wearing an oversized sweatshirt in 90-degree weather. They're just trying to hide from anyone else perceiving them as the sex that they were assigned at birth. So that's what's going on there. And the couple don't out me unless it's absolutely necessary for the safety of the child. I think, when you've got a kid that's coming out to you and they may not have told anyone else, it's important to keep that information private. Don't assume their sexuality because of their gender identity. Don't assume that their family is affirming at all. They may be not at all. And don't assume that I want surgery as a trans person. And don't ever ask what surgeries I've had unless you're a medical doctor and it's medically necessary. And parent communication. I think this is kind of a big one. I have people talk about, well, what about when I meet with the parents, or what about when I have communication with the parents and the child has asked me to use one name or pronouns, and the parents, I don't know what they know. And I try to just keep it gender neutral. Instead of saying she, I would say your child, or something like that. So just try to keep it gender neutral if you're just not really sure. things that you can do, you can become an ally. And I think being an ally is a verb. So what are you doing to be an ally? Are you encouraging this kiddo? Are you affirming them? Are you, you know, participating in events that will help further the affirming nature of the state of South Dakota? Continue learning. This is just like the bare bones basics. So there's so much on our website if you'd like to learn more. There are other national organizations that you can follow on social media to learn all sorts of things, especially during Pride Month. That's kind of a good month to get going because there's a lot of flurry and activity and excitement. Educate others. So, you know, you may go to lunch after this, or you may talk to your family this evening about what you learned and share a little bit about what you learned and why it's important with your family. Challenge those anti-trans remarks and jokes. You know, they need to stop. I see so much of this in the workplace. So challenge those things when they happen, and then donate or volunteer to organizations that are helping the LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit community. And there are lots and lots of them in South Dakota. If you would like to contact us, here is my contact information, but we also have a social worker now on staff. She's our community program coordinator, Maisie. So you're also welcome to get a hold of her as well. If you do have a kiddo that you'd like to share about and get connected, for sure, just text me, call me, email me, any of the above. We can get them going. We do have parent support group. We have a youth community support group. We have support groups for young adults. And all of these are online. We also have in-person options, but these are throughout the state of South Dakota. We have something called Safe Space, which has been going on since January. And Safe Space is an online support community that meets every 2 weeks. And it's for ages 12 and up. We divide people up by age into different breakout groups, and these are coordinated and led by people in the mental health industry, so social workers and counselors. And it's been a really exciting community to get going. And then last but not least, I will give you our social media and our websites. We have 2 websites. I started 2 organizations, one in 2019 and one in 2021. The second organization works against anti-trans legislation and just helps to advocate for the dignity and well-being of trans South Dakotans. That one's called the Transformation Advocacy Network. So I see that we have 5 minutes left here. So I would love to just open it up for any questions. And yeah, if anybody has anything, go ahead and shout out or throw it in the chat.
Susan, thank you so much for presenting today. We appreciate it. A lot of this information is either new to us or expanded, right? As we kind of work through, but I just want to remind everyone why this is important work. You know, the South Dakota After School Network we are not a partisan group. And from the most important thing I think we can say is kids are a nonpartisan issue. We're here to serve kids and that includes all kids. So we're just here to make sure that everyone has the support and access that they need. So I just wanted to talk for a couple minutes while people were kind of gathering their thoughts. Are there any questions we have for Susan and the Transformation Project? If you want to put those in the chat or come off mute, you're more than welcome to. while we kind of wait, I'm going to put just a few items of resources in the chat box. We posted some resources from the National After School Association this week. And so there are some resources that you can do that. I'll just post kind of these in each of the chat room. There are resources from the Human Rights Campaign, so HRC. As far as like how to build better welcoming, it's called Welcoming Schools, but it has the same concept and idea. And then I've got one more resource, which is actually an article from some peers in our out of school time, and just talking about the out of school time, how identity development for youth, that OST or out of school time has a role in what that looks like for you. So I'm posting all three of those resources in the chat room for you all to have. That came from the Boost Cafe or the Boost Conference. Any questions?
I was going to share, and thank you for those resources. Thank you so much. I'm excited to read them. I was going to share that we do have resources, like print resources available for you. And I know that Billy will probably be sending out an email just asking if anyone wants resources to be sent to them. We have brochures, pamphlets, all sorts of things like that. And our other publication is a magazine called Transforming South Dakota Magazine. And this has all of the vocab. We went over all the statistics, all the pictures, and then stories of 15 trans South Dakotans, and just kind of how they are in the world, their story, what they've been through. And I think that having that resource really helps to promote understanding and compassion and empathy. And so if there are any, if you want a couple magazines or 10 magazines, it doesn't matter. We have them, we can send them to you at no cost.
It's a really, we were really impressed with the not just the quality, but like the information inside of it. Like it was really a kind of a wow factor when we met with Susan and to learn more about what that looks like. I am going to stop the recording now.